All right, great to see everybody. I'll go through it quickly here. The people that are popped in already. Yeah, good morning, William Arends. Great to see you. Awesome to see you as well, Tolemykus, Chrispy, Galactic. Great to see you, Eric Goble, Charles Latora, and Zoe Dufour. Awesome. Yeah, it's neat that you're using the bicycle bus thing. I am going to say this is that William Arends, it's actually beautiful outside. I've been outside letting Leo eat the ferns and Lord knows what while I've been reading and writing down some notes. I will say this. This is probably, I would say, without a doubt, the most unprepared I have ever been for a live stream. Mind-boggling. I will say this as well, William Arends. Thank God. I was praying to God. I was like, please send me something, because I don't know. It's weird. Two people actually. I was talking to Zoe Dufour yesterday, and Chrispy Galactic put in a comment about it, and I didn't really clue in at first. Zoe Dufour was mentioning, she was like, "Oh, maybe you're coming off of a high from can games and whatnot." And even last night, I had my writer's workshop last night. Thank goodness I did. Great to see you, Meandering Mike. Hope you're doing well. Yeah, it's just all this week I've been thrown off kilter or whatever, and I was coming into last night, and 40 minutes I did the war summary, and that was the 5th attempt, for goodness sakes, that I did. And I finally just did it this morning. I was like, this is getting absurd. But I was like, I really wanted to get it done. That's for sure. But oh my gosh. So we'll see how this goes. This has been, I'm also going to maybe take pardon the expression, but take a page out of the writer's workshop from last night. The host was mentioning, she was like, sometimes, like if we're going to be doing working on our material, it doesn't mean you have to be doing writing or whatever. If you want to lie down on the floor or whatever, to do like that thing, as long as it was kind of like similar to the way I was thinking about sometimes when I go to the dollar store and like, I spy with my gaming eye looking at objects for the dollar store for gaming and whatnot. I was like, well, if that kind of thing of, if you're in the writing mode or what have you. So anyways, I'm going to go with that. I will say this, William Arends, I swear to God, we're almost like the stereotypical newspaper editor and this reporter showing up at the last possible second, and for me to have to stop the presses. It's just crazy. I'm sorry. I was like, oh my God. I'm like, oh, it's still got 30 minutes to go before the live stream. I'm sure that William Arends will still pop one in at the very, very end kind of thing. I like no, I don't, William Arends, think I'm trying to do some kind of like passive aggressive thing of saying that you should be getting them in earlier. And that's not at all what I'm saying. Anything you send me is like gravy as far as I'm concerned. Chrispy Galactic says, hi, Zoe, hope you got the bike fixed. As far as I know, she did, Chrispy Galactic, but I'll let her yibber yabber, let you guys talk amongst yourselves in the comments. I'll keep an eye out, obviously, to see what's going on. Please let me know what you have been up to this week. Well, for example, I know that Charles Latora hasn't been doing all that well this week, but Meandering Mike, my God, you've been, as per usual, a bloody beast, pumping out videos like there's no tomorrow, and it's not like 3-minute ones either. Anyways, let's go to the narrative first, and then we'll start from there. I think that go away. Why did that happen? That was weird. I just got a read error. Hold on here. I'm going to get back into the thing here. Let's see here. We got that. I don't know why I did that. That was odd. But anyways, I'm going to present the screen. We'll get into we're at the narrative. Yep. All right. So we'll see how it goes. I don't know. Like I said, I didn't have a heck of a lot prepared this week. It was really weird. It's just been the way it's gone, I guess, is the way to go. So we'll see here. William Arends says, I'm happy to see that I'm not the only person on the stream that has a hard time producing content. Oh, my God. William Arends. Oh, yeah. No worries there. No worries there. All right. So here we go with the narrative, and we'll start off and see what I can do, and then we'll go from there kind of thing. Yeah, I feel like even when I woke up this morning, I was like, God, I almost feel like I didn't even sleep. It was just bizarre. So the live stream fact checker, it was just a couple of things. The British submarines in the Baltic, I think I mentioned it in the war summary that I recorded because of the Can Games thing. I think I said in it, I was like, but they're there. And they are, but I still would like to find out a little bit more information. So yet again, when we get down to it, it's a link that I provided a while back about British subs being in the Baltic and whatnot, and the grief that the crews are going to have when the Russian Civil War happens and they're left up there like, oops. The St. Petersburg Petrograd thing. This is something that Tolemykus mentioned way back when I was talking about something about the threat towards Riga and whatnot. I was like, well, what's up there? And Tolemykus had mentioned, well, they're probably going for the capital. And I was like, Petrograd? I thought the capital was St. Petersburg. But I just found out this week. Brian R. Smith says, congratulations, Mike, for your win in first Chit Show Trivia. What's that one? I'm going to have to find out what that is. Anyways, I didn't know that, and I just found out this week from a book that I'm reading, and hopefully we'll get to it as well. It's Carpathian Disaster, Death of an Army. And I didn't realize that St. Petersburg's name got changed to Petrograd because I guess they wanted to get away from the Germanic name, just the way a lot, like House of Hanover and all that stuff with the Brits. So I thought that was interesting. Like I said, I didn't know. So today we'll be revealing the first number or battle for Big Bertha Bingo. Cherami's going to come through and bring it, so that'll be good. And as you see here, the round one champion is Meandering Mike. And right now we're tied with Brian R. Smith and Meandering Mike are duking it out at 45 points. I think we got 5 more left before the end, and then off. And then somebody gets the Cherami book. Meandering Mike says, Dan and Artie did trivia game this Tuesday. Only one because I got the last big one. Oh, cool. So at least now I know what you're talking about. It's like, what this other trivia thing going on? So anyways, here we go. This is what's going on here. We're not doing a pinup gal and guy of the week because I didn't prepare for it. BGG game of the week. I just found out. I thought it was going to be next week. That Paul, thank God, it's not this week because, like I said, talk about and it's the irony is that Paul Hederer had asked, "Oh, do you want to do it this week?" And I was like, "Well, actually, no." Because I'm just going to be coming off of Can Games, and I was like, I may be discombobulated, and I would like to have a week back in the saddle kind of thing before getting into it. But then he was like, well, I can't do it the week after, so that's why we're going to be doing it, the 8th of June. So that's that. And thank you, William Arends. Yep, we're doing your the ATA, the Arends Translation Attrition. And here's some of the stuff that I hope to God we can talk about. Is the British subs protect Russia in the Baltic during the First World War. Like I said, that's just an article that I found a while back. 2 people had mentioned this thing. I think it was Charles Latora and the Grog Shed both brought it up to me. The Time Team Special Lost Submarines in World War I. And the ArcGIS, it's just because I was looking up I wanted to look at the global shipping routes. It's just for my game to try to figure out for merchant shipping and whatnot. I just want to get a feel for it. And when I went online to go take a look, I'm sure there's a zillion scalable vector maps out there, but ArcGIS is a great application. And I thought maybe if we do have time, I can go and show it to you. You can get into insane detail anywhere on the planet, essentially. So I thought, if people want to get into that. Meandering Mike, William Arends says, Meandering Mike, you beat by 1 blue max. Oh, neat. ResearchGate is also another. I just found it. It seems like it potentially could be a good resource for people that want to find out more, anything history related. The men who dig World War trenches and fields. The reason why I've got that up there, the YouTube thing, is when I was talking to Bob and his colleague at Can Games, the vendors are the guy that I love to bits, and I was talking, oh, by the way, are you going to be going to the military hobby show this year? And they both chuckled because they were like, well, actually, we're the organizers for that thing. And I was like, oh, don't forget, blah, blah, blah about World War I, put some things aside for me. And Bob said, actually, we'll introduce you to somebody there who's got some crazy ass mustache or whatever. And he's been digging a trench somewhere off in his farmland or whatnot, and trying to get school bus kids in, you know, for educational purposes and so on and so forth. And he's like, we'll try to hook you up. I was like, yeah, no kidding. A Canadian history, Craig Baird, just another website that looked rather interesting. There's the Carpathian Disaster, Death of an Army book that I just started reading. It's a super quick book that I picked up. It's an interesting one. Most of it's about Brusilov, which I thought was rather interesting. Meandering Mike says, I had my fingers on the keyboard, and if I didn't know the answer, I made up my joke answers the way I like to do so. Oh, brother. And Andrew, yet again, I did reach out to Andrew Chung. I hope he'll let me. Such a nice person. He does a great job. Like I was saying, his YouTube channel is fantastic. I love the way the guy talks, and the way he's able to tease narrative out of things is just amazing. But he was doing the playthrough of the Great War at Sea, Jutland, and I've asked him if I could. He didn't respond in time because I sent it too late. But I'm hoping that we can pop in a little bit of his video in a future live stream so I can show it to you guys and entice you guys to pop on over. I finished the Storm of Steel book yesterday by Ernst Junger. Holy smokes, what a good book. I cannot even begin to tell you. Please pick that book up. It is a sweetheart of a book. Just so good to read. Amazing. I pop my dictionary out every 3 seconds. That guy knows how to use English words like there's no tomorrow. Also, the Never Going Home RPG is good. Charles Latora. I picked up one of the supplements. Meandering Mike was mentioning there's something like 5 other supplements. The one they only had one other one, and that I even said to the person afterwards, I said, I'm so glad that you brought this one in particular because it's got tons of scenarios in it. It's got Tannenberg, Gallipoli, Mons, and he even has Lake Tanganyika, Charles Latora. So I'm sure with the horror thing, it's got a hell of a lot. It's got more than just your killer bees. I can tell you that much. So that's it. Yeah, there may be more than 5. Oh, whoa. Okay, so we've done that. We've done that. I'm going to stop the screen temporarily, and now we'll go to give you some the World War I. Who or what am I in who or what am I in World War I? That's it. I'm so used to saying the history heroes. Oh yeah, and Harro Bosma is not here today. He's hanging out with his fellow ex-military dudes. Some, I don't know what, 30th reunion or something like that, but that's what he's doing this weekend. However, he did send us pictures of his Axis and Allies set up on his table. It's not with the other map. I was surprised. I thought it was going to be on with the gray one. I was but he just left it with the Axis and Allies map. We'll take a look at that. Hold on here. I'm going to get into the clues, and I'll also pop it in the banners here. Just going to make sure that I've got the right ones here. Hold on here. All right. Yeah, it was. I was like, okay, I don't even know what's going to happen today for the live streams. All right, so here's your first. I'm putting it in the comments, and then I'm going to pop it in the banners. So I know the first one is usually pretty, it could be practically anybody. I come from a family of 8 children. Who am I? I'm assuming it's going to, odds are. John Boy Walton, nice one. Oh darn it! I got to get my pencil out. Yeah, I was wondering if somebody was going to say something like that type of a thing, but hold on here. I'm going to pop you on. There you go. You get a point. And Tolemykus says Adam Rich, and you're going to get a point as well. Done. And I'll put in your second clue. I want to make sure that I'm there. All right. Yep, that's a good one to do. And I was an important player on the University of Chicago's first Big Ten Conference title for basketball back in 1907. Who am I? All right. So that narrows it down somewhat, kind of. At least you're not probably looking for an Austrian, I would assume. All right. I'll put no one's okay. I'm just gonna pop out the third clue then. I served in France and rose to the rank of major. However, I did not see combat. Who am I? Still don't get it, eh? My grandmother did, but that is not the answer. Oh, Wilt the Stilt. All right, Chrispy Galactic, you're incorrect, but you're going to get a point. Okay. This one was, we'll see what you guys think of this, of the fourth clue. Hold on here. Tolemykus says some politician. No, yeah, you are incorrect, but good one. Neville Wilt Chamberlain. Well done. Oh my God, you should get a bonus point for that one, but you're not because you're way ahead of anything. But well done, Meandering Mike. That's excellent. Oh my God, man. Brian R. Smith, son of a B. You did it. Holy moly. Charles Latora, Patton, you were incorrect, but nice one. I like where you're going. Yes, Brian R. Smith, Edward Hubble. How the heck did you do that? I'm absolutely shocked. Because you get what? Here's the next clue. Would have been I met a special type of hooker on Mount Wilson. Who am I? And that would have been that. And the reason why it is because his career really took off when he got to work with the Hooker Observatory at Mount Wilson. So that's that one. Well done, Brian R. Smith. Holy smokes, man. I was not, that was, holy moly. I thought, okay, when we got to maybe number 4, like I said, when I got to that one, I thought maybe people would start cluing in. And then that one is, and I'll pop that one in. You could say that most of my career was out of this world. I think you guys can see why I say that. And then, yeah, so he ended up, as far as I know, he did enlist with the Army. And by the time he got over there in 1918 and whatnot, effectively, it was over kind of thing. So he never really did get to see, well, good for him, I guess. Didn't get to see any combat. So, and then his job that he was going to be at Mount Wilson or whatever was left open for him. So he got to get back. And they're just going to put in the last one. An asteroid, crater on the moon, and a telescope have been named after me. And I'll get rid of the banner. And then I'll show you a quickie picture of him. And we can get rid of that. Wow. Impressive. Again, Jeepers jumping. This has been an interesting round 2 thingamajig. You guys have been just duking it out. You two there, Meandering Mike and Brian R. Smith. Hold on here. I'm going to get to, like I said, a picture, and then maybe we'll go off to look at Harro Bosma's stuff as well as your stuff, William Arends, and that should lead us into some nice things, I hope. All right, hold on here. I'm going to present it. Yeah, and like I said, thankfully I did. I've already recorded the. The war summary, so I don't have to worry about going like a maniac. I can just put it into the after hours. William Arends says, thankfully Hubble was a genius whose brains weren't scrambled in the trenches of World War I. Yep. And the imagine is how many, as we know, there's how many people did end up, like you were saying, yeah. Anyways, I gotta stop always commenting every time somebody like you can have your own whatever. I don't have to be the whatever. All right. So we've done that. Like I said, I've got to keep an eye on. Oh yeah, let's do the pictures, Harro Bosma pictures, and then we can go to your pictures, which are just still in the download section. Oh my gosh. So hold on here. I'm going to see if I can put it here, and then I'm going to see if that'll help. See how that looks. How's that? Hopefully you guys can see that pretty darn good. I've got it on fit the width, the image, so I'm going to go back along here, but at least we're going to be able to see. It is true. It does darn look good. The Axis and Allies, like all those things look fantastic. They really do. So there we go. Holy moly. Look at that. It's got the full table on. All the pieces are out on the table. Like everything is just there. Oh, Harro Bosma, you lucky devil. There we go. Yeah, that's a sweetheart. But I certainly hope to goodness he does do some images for the grayish picture. I want to see that one on there, man. That's what I thought he was going to do. I thought he was actually just going to say, screw the Axis and Allies map. I'm going to use the gray guy. So, but wonder how he's doing with this. And didn't you, Eric Goble, I don't know if you're still there or whatnot, but I think that isn't that what you said way back when you were playing Axis and Allies as well, as far as I know. So there's another shot. Speaking of which, Eric Goble says, Eric, yes, okay, and that, okay, awesome. I know, as I do for. He's got. I was thinking of that. It reminded me very much of Stefan embellishment with the war table. Is this it? No, well, it's kind of almost it. Maybe we'll just keep on trucking with this in a weirdo way. Let's see if I can find the comparison. So yet again, like I said, in a couple of weeks, we're going to have. Here, I'll get rid of me so that way you can see it more. In a couple of weeks, that we're going to have Paul Hederer, the designer for 1916 Prelude to Blitzkrieg, coming. And one thing I did want to start taking a look at is, and remember he was saying that it's going to follow very closely to the rules of Nach Paris and whatnot, but not exactly. I mean, it's going to be its own thing. But I was like, okay, I want to start taking a look at, I know that he had pictures, and here's the ones on the right. These are from Prelude to Blitzkrieg on the right. But I wanted to see if there was any changes that I could see over time of the counters. Are they starting to look more like the Nach Paris counters, which are the ones on the left here? But I can see, I mean, it seems to me, I mean, you guys, I don't know, I've never played any VUCA games, so I don't know anything about them, but that seems awfully similar, except, I mean, this has got a 9-0 and a 7-0. That one has a 5-12. But it'd be neat to find out, like I want to go, hopefully he'll go over all this stuff. But I wanted to start seeing if there was some kind of, if I could start seeing some similarities, but I couldn't find any earlier pictures of his counters to do a comparison. But I don't know about you guys, but on the right-hand side, I know there's an awful lot of information on those counters, but nowhere near does that look crowded to me. It doesn't look hard for me to read or any of that stuff. It looks quite, I think it looks really good. Eric Goble says they look close, but I see new unit types represented. Okay, cool, thanks. Yeah, it just looks, I don't know. I'm like, I don't find that confusing to read. I don't know. I've seen counters with less information on them and find them way more difficult to read. So I find that rather interesting. Okay, I'm going to stop this for a second until I can get to Harro, William Arends' pictures. And this is the, hold on, I got to get to them. There we are. And then I'm going to have to, hold on here. I'm going to see if I can, Meandering Mike says the right is easier to read, the left is harder to read. Yes, well, yeah, I 100% completely agree with you, man. Yeah, it's, I don't know. I'm like, wow, this person knows how to do it right. I mean, my God, it's been working on it for how long now? Okay, so blank. All right, so this is, and please, William Arends, if you can chime in and let us know what the heck you're seeing or what we see. So I don't know what, hold on here. Maybe we can. C Company, 133rd Battalion, Borden, 1916. Okay, cool. Okay, done that. And then there's the next one. Oh, there you go. And see what it says on the right here. Oops. Hold on here. It just blows me away how many, like, you hear about how many, I don't know, all the support staff that has to go into, like, just mind blowing how many people are at. Anyways, like more studio. Okay, no, it's just a whatever. Like William Arends says, I was able to play one turn of Quartermaster General in 1914 with my grandson. Cool. It is hard to hold the interest of a young child for a complex strategy game. He's still below the recommended age. Oh, cool though, William Arends, because I have that game upstairs. That was, as far as I remember, Meandering Mike will probably know. I can't remember the person's name, a very famous designer, game designer, and he was saying that that's his go-to game for World War I. He says that he finds that game really solidifies what he thinks the World War II experience should be. And that's another picture that you gave me, as far as I know. I can't really read it. And I'm just going to make sure that I don't jump into, well, we'll find out. It'll try to, no, that's it. Okay. I think that's it. Yep. All right. So that's that. Yeah. It's, anytime you want to chime in more, William Arends, about that game, about how you feel about it, I would love to hear about it. Like I said, because I've got it upstairs, and it was one that we were thinking, Rob and I were thinking about playing. All right, so let me take a look at the narrative to make sure that we're not, well, we are, as per usual. We're all, I'm all over the place. Yeah, let's do the ATA. We're going to go straight to your William Arends ATA thing, so that way I'm not going to screw that over. Okay, so here. Boink. Okay, and you guys can see that pretty darn good, I hope. Yeah, I bumped it up to 20 point, and hopefully that'll be good. Translator's note: it is interesting to see how the original English of Wilson's speech and peace initiatives translate from the original English to German and back to English. It is a subtle way to see how words are changed between languages when they are even as close as English and German. Berlin's latest news, the 20th of May, 1916. Wilson speaks. According to the London Times, President Wilson has given a speech in the Washington Press Club where he discussed and emphasized that he wanted to pursue peace as much as is possible. However, the matter is not up to him alone to decide. In this, he is not the singular master of events. Rather, he is the servant of his people as far as he can conceptualize their wants and desires. The difficulty in doing so can be expressed in two themes that will enable America to keep the peace, thus Wilson declared. First, that they continue to live in a state of peace. Secondly, that Americans view the warring parties as not having made ill-conceived, irresponsible actions. But North America has a place not only amongst the greatest, but also amongst the most distinguished, honorable nations of this world. One that consciously in this world has exhibited an ever larger moral influence, and that if it is to take this desirable place, then it must, more than ever, firmly hold to its point of view as it pertains to other nations. If I, with my moral influence, cannot bring others into agreement insomuch as these others continue to fight over lands far and wide, then I must, in that situation, determine what is in the Americans' best interest. Berlin's latest news, the 24th of May, 1916, they want the fight to continue. England and Russia have no inclination towards peace. Amsterdam, 23rd of May. At an assembly in North Carolina, Wilson declared that the American Independence Day could not be better celebrated than through a sacred expression of peace. Now that the leading warring nations are incapable of achieving military dominance, and it thus follows that it is necessary for them to begin to negotiate in good faith. These words have provoked in London a negative response, for the Daily Telegram reports that the unshakable determination of the Allies is that Germany, from the start of this war, has wanted to compel other nations by vanquishing and subjugating them. This fact must be known in America. That, because of this attitude, every initiative of Wilson must be seen by the American public as an inopportune time to hold a peace conference. Translator's note: the report below is meant to show how the Allies in the Entente, in this case France, were planning to take land and colonies at the end of the war. Goodness gracious, eh? And what sounds on off? Well, let's stop editorializing, Chris. What France desires from the war. The Croix reported over a new development in Syria with Baron Cressati. Any future negotiations with Turkey will include that the associated allies receive a great piece of Turkish land. France must hold Syria, indeed what is considered Greater Syria. Its geography has 11 centuries of historical connection to both the national and commercial interests of France. that have been unquestionably predominant, and astonishingly, the Syrian public demands that this dominance continues. Meandering Mike says, classic English to Russian, Russian to English back and forth mistranslation. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. Became the wine is strong, but the meat is rotten. Woof. Oh, and on a side note, Meandering Mike, did you know that, darn it, I can't remember the name of the song, but it's actually originally, Those Were the Days is a Russian tune. It's, yeah, like, you know, though, anyways, you get the whole idea. I will say this on a side note as well, Meandering Mike, that you were mentioning way back when we were looking at the political map of Africa in July 1914, that map. And I was like, what the hell is that? I mean, they jumped the gun a bit, but they had like part of Palestine is French territory already, but that kind of puts it into here. There, Tolemykus says, it seems the same to me. Where am I here? This will not be handled as a conquest by France, rather as an offering of itself. Syria. Meandering says, those were the days, my friend. I thought they'd never end. Yes, and it's amazing. That's it. That's the one, man. Freaked me right out. I just found that a little while ago. The fruitfulness and trading skills of the Syrians makes any and every possible economic objection from elsewhere to this takeover irrelevant. Translator's note. The following headlines are showing that Austria-Hungary is winning the war in its theaters of operations by itself. Berlin's latest news, 26th of May, 1915. 16. We're going to go with that because it ain't no 1915. The Austrians are making unopposed advances on the Russian front. The Italian army is conducting a retreat in the face of Austro-Hungarian forces. And that's that. Yep, we can get rid of the ATA. Boink. And what else did I wanted to pop on in here? We're going to stop the screen for now so I can see what in the world I wanted to babble on about. Well, like I said, Cheapers jumping. Okay. Oh, yes. Let's quickly. It was, I'm like, God, I hope he does do it. It's like, don't do that. Sageza one, here, I'm going to pop it on the thing here. So Jezza one's still pumping out. Oh my God, I didn't even do the share of me thing, which is an extra point for the bingo. Well, about to do that one. Cheapers. Hold on here. I'm going to make sure I didn't. Did I screw it up? No, we're there. Oh, thank God. Go to YouTube here. This guy here. Hold on here. Yeah, Jezza one's like, oh, I think I'm gonna scrap. I made a major mistake with the game. I forgot about some reinforcements. They weren't supposed to go. Whoa! I guess that's the name of the song in or the way you'd spell it in Russian. Anyways, yeah, he at the very end here he was saying that. Yeah, you can see that. So I hope he is going to continue because it's wonderful to watch him do it. And I get to compare like his Eastern Front to what was going on with mine. It's really nice to see. Meandering Mike says, The Long Road is the name of the Russian folk song. Oh, cool. Thank you. So that's that. I got that one there. Hold on here. I want to see what else I popped in the. What was the. What the heck was it there? Wasn't that. It wasn't that. It was, oh yeah, let's, I said we would do the share ME thing for goodness sakes, and I didn't, I got to remember, I don't have to, I can just, I can do this. I don't have to kill the screen and then I can, whatever. All right, share ME. So I don't know if you guys, like I'm not going to, like I did post your bingo cards for you guys. So hopefully you'll take a look. I did, what I thought was neat, well, I'm going to take a look at the message. And see what it is. So it's 1918, number 61, Battle of Arends or something. And here was the neato thing. Hopefully we'll get to it. Hold on. I want to make sure that I get to the right one. Is it going to? Boink. Yeah, I couldn't find anything for it. So I'm going to just let you see this bit here. I'm going to get rid of me. Or I can go to this. Maybe this will help. So that's so if you guys have if you have 1918 number 61, you're going to get a point. I'll take a look later for your bingo cards. this was neat. I thought, for me anyways, because I started questioning, I was like, what the hell's going on here? The Battle of Arends or whatever, I can't pronounce that, was fought between Polish legionnaires and Austria-Hungary. Tolemykus says, nothing for me. Okay. And I was like, what the hell are they talking about? Polish troops. This is World War I. What is going on here? And then I'm like, am I reading the right, is this like 1919? What's going on here? Is this like way past whatever? And then, and of course, I started reading a bit more, and it's like, okay, this is after Russia collapses. And I guess I don't know yet about this, but I know that it's a big treaty that happens. And I guess part of it, they must have given, I guess, a part of former Poland back to Poland proper or whatever, and gave it I don't know. We'll find it. You guys, like I said, probably know way more about these types of things than I do. But I just thought there's this kind of neat that the first battle that I picked or whatever is one that gave me a monster head scratcher. And yet again, it's kind of neat to hear or start thinking about things of like, you start hearing about people saying, well, for some, the world, like the Great War, started before, 1914 for them, and some of them it just continued after. It's like like who you are depends on, and what's going on in your world depends on how you view the Great War and whether or not it is a Great War or so on and so forth. I thought that was just neat that I got to see the first battle. So anyways, that's it. Yeah, it's not a mind blower or whatever, but there we go. I've done that one. Yeah, this is the book I was mentioning. Just a quickie one I picked up at the used bookstore at the War Museum, and what I thought it was going to be about was more about this, but a lot of it's, well, he does a quickie run through, but it's a super quick. You can see it's a super quick book. It's not, there's Rasputin. It's not going to take long at all to read this thing, but it's primarily about the Brusilov offensive and whatnot. And I thought, well, this is perfect because the Brusilov offensive is just about to kick in any minute now. I think it's early June, which is kind of nice due to the fact that that also had an impact with Romania deciding to enter the war when they did, because the Brusilov offensive was doing really well. And lo and behold, we'll be talking to Paul Hederer, the designer for the Romania game. So I thought that's kind of neat that it will be happening, you know what I mean, when he's going to show up. That's, yeah, I'm pretty darn happy about that. I'm just looking at my, here, I'm going to show you the narrative, so you'll know what the heck I'm looking at as well. Makes sense to me. There we go. Yeah, okay, I did. Yeah, I'm going to show, well, I don't have to show it, but I will. Hold on, as in, where are you? Oh yeah, let's take a quickie look. Just wanted to show you what I mean by that, like how really neat the that ArcGIS website is, and how amazing you can get into look at some stuff. Are you gonna let me? Oh, don't start doing that again. Just let me see it. Oh, because they're asking me, I've got to sign up and do all kinds of stupid ass stuff. Are you gonna let me in? Maybe I'm not. We're not going to be able to go in, even though I was able to do it. Yes, do it, no problem. You little brats. Yep, screw this. I'm not getting into this. But yeah, what a bummer. But the ArcGIS was nice looking when I was looking at it a little while ago. So fine, we're going to go to the ResearchGate thing. And this was probably, I think I was looking for who or what am I in World War I trivia thing, and I'm going to share the other one. Oops. Yowzers. There we go. This one here, I'll try to get rid of me. Hold on. You can see that. Yeah, I was thinking about, I was going to use camels for the trivia thing, and anyways, I couldn't find a lot of information about. Well, I did, but not enough that I wanted to. It just didn't seem compelling. And then I found Edwin Hubble. I was like, yeah, let's go with that. But anyways, I haven't put any of these things in the sources and links yet, but I will after the show. This thing, ResearchGate. It looks pretty darn interesting. And it says join it should join free, not for free. But anyways, it looks good. I just wanted to, like I said, I'm going to put it in there so you guys can see it. If you guys want to take a look. Let's take a look again at that Never Going Home. I want to see if I can find, like I said, I just didn't know how this show was going to go today because I was just like, yeah, so here's the Never Going Home RPG thing that I was mentioning, that it looks actually playable. I don't know about you guys, but there's a lot of RPGs out there that I'm like, yeah, but how playable are they really? You know, there's that type of stuff. Brian R. Smith says, Poland officially didn't exist during the war, but some 1.5 million Poles were wounded or died during the war fighting for Russia, Germany, and Austrian armies. Thank you for that. Yes, I just don't know if, you know what I mean, at the time if they identified as, but I guess by then, maybe in February 1918, part of that after the Brest-Litovsk treaty, that maybe they did actually have a proper country for them, I guess. Now, where's the other one I wanted to see? But anyways, it looks playable. That's really what I can say is, see if I can find if there's this is the one that I also picked up. Yeah, this is the other one that they had. Let's see, would they? I'm going to show you more of it. Nope. Darn it. I wanted to see if there was any, if they could show you more of this. Oh, yeah, look at that one. There's even that one. But this one, like I said, it had Lake Tanganyika, Mons, Tannenberg, Gallipoli, the whole 9 yards. I thought, wow, like if any of them that they picked up was pretty darn good. Republic of Poland was formed in 1981. I get you, Meandering Mike. But on a side note, I just found out that you're mentioning 1981. It's pretty close. England, Great Britain finished paying off their war debt to the United States for World War I in 1987. Holy F. I was like, what the hell? That's like, Jesus. Like, all right, you know what I mean? Like that just tells you how much money as well. I think actually, let's go to it. I think this week actually has it. Tells you about how much money they're spending. It was like, holy Jesus, jumping mother. Okay, let's hold on here. Like per day. It's like, you got to be joking, man. All right, so you guys can see that. So here we go, yeah. And oh my God, we're quarter to 12, and pretty soon I'm going to slap on the whatever. And yet again, I don't want to keep saying this to you guys every week, but I'm sorry. I'll try to do better for next week and be more prepared. If it's just like I said, I don't know what. Yeah, I mean, okay, we'll chalk it up to can games. Anyways, May 19th, Germans take trench work south of Hill 287. German air raid on the coast of Kent with 1 killed and 2 injured. German seaplane destroyed off the Belgian coast. Italians retreat from the Monte Tororo, Monte Cambolone, Spitz-Tanitsa line, goodness gracious, in Trentino region. Turks evacuate Essin position on the right bank of the Tigris. Evidence of Mr. Birrell before Irish commission. Tolemykus says, fake it until you make it. My God, Tolemykus. You just basically, that's the motto I use at work. My boss even knows I call it smoke and mirrors. She uses it so much now too. She's like, oh, is that a bit of your smoke and mirrors? I'm like, yep. Oh my God. Anyway, so you nailed me. You nailed me again, Tolemykus. May 20th, south bank of the Tigris to Shat El Hai, cleared of Turks. 3 Russian officers, 110 soldiers, and Cossacks from the Caucasus joined the British on the Tigris at Ali Gerbi. Great German attack on Mort Home. Germans capture summit of Hill 295. British regain the mine crater on Vimy Ridge. May 21st, French capture quarries of Haudromont and 2 trenches on the Esnay-Haucourt Road. German attack on the western slopes of Mortholm succeeds. Austrians capture Armentera Ridge south of Brenta, Trentino. Russians repulse Turks south of Trebizond. Russians occupy Sardasat, Persia. Port Said is bombed. German Food Control Board created with Herr Bataki as president. British Daylight Saving Bill comes into effect. I was talking about this with Meandering Mike a couple of weeks ago. I keep forgetting to mention this, that, the Daylight Savings is the big, it's happening right now. People trying to figure out whether or not they're going to adopt it or not. It's so now you know where all the bitching and whining starts. It's now. May 22nd, Mr. Briand delivers a speech to the Russian delegates. Aha! Here it is. The daily cost of war, £4.82 million. Holy F. British defeat at Ali Dinar. Sultan of Darfur at Berengia. French gain a footing in Fort Douaumont. May 23rd, German assault on Douaumont front and on Cumier. Italians retreat between Estacco and Bretna and Sagana Valley, Trentino. British occupy El Fashir, capital Darfur. Ali Dinar flees to Jebel Mara. Oh, I'm going to look that up. Dr. Bethman Holveg replies to Sir Edmund Grey. Vote a credit for £300 million. How long is that going to last? 10 minutes? Well, what did we say there? 4.82. We could figure that out. But it ain't going to last long, is it? May 24th, Sir Edmund Grey speaks in Commons on peace terms. Russians capture Mamakotn, I guess, Armenia. Goodness. Germans, and you want to see butchering. Wait, you just stick around for the after hours. Holy F. Germans capture Cumier and regain Fort Douaumont. And is that it? Nope. May 25th, German attack between Haudromont Wood and Thiaumont Farm. Infantry battle for Boule Pass, Trentino begins and lasts 6 days. Austrians take Batal, I guess, or something. 2 Italian battalions land at Morasia, west of Sollum. Whoa. So that's North Africa, right? German retreat in German East Africa. British occupies Same, Rufu Lager, Lumbini, and Ngulu in German East Africa. British Military Service Act becomes law. Congratulatory message by King on the passing of that British Military Service Act. Mr. Lloyd George undertakes settlement of the Irish question. Boink. Done. All right. Not too many minutes left. I'll take a quickie look and see a few more things here that I may wanted to show you, but I think pretty soon I'm just going to hit the after hours button quick. Yeah, okay. Actually, hold on here. Yes, this book, man, like I said, I finished it yesterday. Wow, what a good book. My main takeaways, I would say, for the book, I think I've mentioned it before, is the sounds. He constantly is mentioning sounds, describing the sounds over and over and over again in the book, like right from the get-go. That's why I was like, at the very beginning, I was like, gosh, I gotta see if I can find some actual recorded sounds of this, because he was describing the different bombs. Like this one makes a whizzing sound, this one does a fluttering sound, hearing the weird sounds of the fuses that had separated from the bombs. William Arends says these British pounds were in a hard currency, though I am sure some inflation had occurred. Oh yeah, it's fascinating as well, William Arends, when reading, as well as you know, right now it's the pound sterling that's I guess the de facto current global currency, certainly not the American dollar. And we know that's going to change. It's just neat when I'm reading all these things. I'm like, wow, the world is going to change pretty dramatically pretty soon. And, you know, and I mean, as we know that the British are just borrowing money like there's no tomorrow off the Americans, or buying things and saying, we'll pay you later, you know, just keep sending us more military whatevers. Unbelievable. Meandering Mike says, never going home. One of the books is The Adventures of a U-Boat Crew. Tears in the Sea. That sounds like Charles Latora written all over it, doesn't it? Thanks for that one, Meandering. I have to look it up. Yeah, well, like I said, I'm glad the person did bring that. Like she was saying, you know, we only had enough room for one of the supplements, and like I was saying, I'm glad you brought that one because some of them are very specific. Oh, I like the sound of that one though. Ooh, jeepers! Imagine! Oh my God! I'm just trying to think of a horror thing here stuck in there. Holy Lord, left them. I mean, not to mention it's a horror show to begin with, without any crazy ass monsters running around in it. You know what? This just is going to be a little bit of you call it an indulgence or whatever. I thought it's completely unrelated to World War I or whatever, but I thought maybe you guys would kind of like to see it. Well, a lot of, and when I saw this is years ago, I saw this this video or whatever, and I just had it stuck on my whatever. And when I watched it last night again, and I was like, I want to show it to you guys. And even though I'm not showing it to you, hold on here. I'm going to have to pop it in here. This is just one instrument this person's doing. And I'm thinking, my God, one instrument. You imagine, like you guys will see with the Romans, imagine having hundreds of them. Holy moly. It must be impressive. Now, am I going to get, I will probably get in trouble. But I want to play a little bit because I want you to hear it. Yeah, I don't want to get into, well, I don't want to get into too much trouble, but I just had to show it to you because I was like, that's one instrument. I know. I'm like, my God, that must have been impressive when you had a bunch of people doing it. You know, like, you know, here comes the emperor or whatever. Holy moly, it must have been incredible. Yeah, I don't know. Like, you know what? We're probably just I'm just gonna slap on the 40-minute thingamajig. Let's take a quickie look and see if there was anything else that like I said, I'll make sure. Yeah, extra large kazoo. Oh my! And also, I don't know about you, Tolemykus, but who in the right, like, who comes up with that idea? Hey, let's just make some giant loopy instrument. It's just amazing. Like, we got a lot of brass hanging around, or what? It's just amazing. Yeah, I'll put all the other stuff. I'll put all the other stuff in the links and whatever's. Yes, Charles Latora, it is. And like I was saying, imagine, like, God, it must have been so, like, you know, you've got like 50 people doing that or something. It must have been like, holy Moses. Yeah, let's just do that, I think, is what I'm gonna. We'll put. I'll start from there because I can't really. Was there anything else? No, I don't think so. I'll just gonna go straight to the whatever. I will say, because as before, probably won't. And I'll try this time, Chrispy Galactic. I know you were saying it. We'll see if it works. I'm just going to turn off the my microphone button and see if that works. And you guys won't hear me tell Leo to keep quiet or what have you, or even just typing and moving around. We'll see if that works. Hold on here. I got to get to my see if it'll. I'll present my screen. Okay, you're in there. I just got to get to the. Oh, it would be in the war summary. Okay, put it in there, and this would be this one. Oops, and away we go. All right, here we go. Okay, please let me. Oh yeah, I haven't. I will in a minute. Please let me know if you guys hear it. Like I said, I'll turn off the microphone. I'll just stop it here so I can see it properly for a second. Yet again, thank you so much for popping up and saying hello and engaging with me. This is basically what I want to do every week, kind of thing. Is just, like, as you, well, I think you've probably clued in by now. That's all I really want to do. So I hope you guys have a great week. I hope to see you next week, and we'll start getting really ready for 2 weeks from now, which is going to be the special episode, because we're going to have Paul Hederer over, and we're going to basically essentially spend the hour talking about his game. So hopefully that'll go well. So thanks again. Like I said, I'm about to hit this thing, and hopefully you guys won't hear me, and I'll turn into you people as well. In other words, I'll just be typing away, and that'll be that. Thanks again. Hope you guys have a great time. See you later. Let me see if it works. I'm gonna put this on full on. Okay. Here we go. Take number 5. My God. May 19th to the 25th, 1916. The war summary. The events of the past 24 hours indicate that the Germans have at last had enough of the struggle to the north of Verdun and are withdrawing their infantry under cover of a continuous and extremely violent artillery fire. During Wednesday night, they vainly tried to capture the redoubt in the wood of Avalcourt, which they themselves originally constructed, and which was captured by the French in one of the fiercest engagements of the campaign. The enemy advanced to the attack several times, failed utterly, and suffered very serious losses. The French Midnight Report says that this check was followed by a very violent bombardment covering the entire Avalcourt Woods section. At 5 o'clock yesterday afternoon, the German infantry once more advanced against the French positions in the Avalcourt Woods and on Hill 304. They never got to close quarters. The French artillery and machine gun fire stopped them, and they are believed to have suffered very great losses. The French are no longer content to remain strictly on the defensive. This is shown by the report that early on Thursday morning, before dawn, the French captured a small German fort northeast of Hill 304 after a furious engagement and penetrated a German trench to the north of Hill 287, killing or making prisoners of its occupants. A month ago, when the German positions were crammed with men waiting an opportunity to attack, these French surprise assaults would have been followed at once by vigorous counteroffensives. The inference is obvious. Germany no longer hopes to break through and is withdrawing her troops for use elsewhere. The pressure upon the Belgians along the Yser continues. The Germans are smashing the positions of King Albert's men with trench mortars and guns of all calibers. Following an especially violent bombardment, they made an infantry attack north of Strinstracht on the east bank of the Yser, but were halted by the Belgian infantry and artillery fire. Oh yes, and there's lots of words I'm going to butcher. A Toronto merchant recently returned from London learned that while the British Ordnance Department has laid up ample stores of projectiles behind the British lines, the Germans appear to be equally well provided. Early in the winter, the British were firing several shells to every one used by the enemy. That was probably due to the careful use of projectiles necessary to prevent, of the accumulation of great reserves for the German offensive at Verdun. Now there seems to be no disposition on the part of the German gunners facing the British and Belgian lines to husband their stores of shells. Most of the British losses are due to artillery fire. France has her ammunition problems as well as Great Britain. The loss of output through the drinking habits of workmen engaged in the manufacture of military supplies has proved so great that the French authorities have promulgated, which I went to go take a look, the word up because I didn't know what it meant. It meant basically just to make public an order that men who drink persistently will be taken from the workshops and sent to the front, where there is no opportunity of going on a spree without the risk of facing a firing squad later on. The French government also proposes to abolish the right of distillation for private use, which seems to be a frightful source of intemperance. Just going to pause to grab. The rumor that Germany is going to use her fleet to strike not only at Riga but at Petrograd is interesting, not to be scoffed at. Unless the German people, who have put hundreds of millions of pounds into their fleet first and last, get a run for their money, Navy leagues and Navy budgets will be mighty unpopular in Germany for many a year. To send the fleet out into the North Sea to be sunk by Jellicoe would be heroic, but it would not be very sensible. descended up the Gulf of Finland in company with a landing force big enough to capture and loot Petrograd would be a great stroke of business from the point of view of the German general staff. The risk from submarine attack and from mines in the relatively narrow waters of the Gulf of Finland would be serious. But for that risk, the German fleet would long ago have shelled Petrograd. The Russians have opened the season of submarine warfare in the Baltic by the destruction of 3 German steamers off the island of Landsort to the south of Stockholm. The vessels sunk were the Harro, a big oil tanker, the Kolga, and the Blanka. The Harro and the Kolga were both warned, the crew of the latter being given 20 minutes in which to abandon ship. The captains of 2 of the vessels were taken prisoner, which seems to be a rather novel way of enforcing the idea that German shipmasters take risks in the Baltic trade. A dispatch from London says a large number of British submarines are operating in the Baltic. It is not improbable, as suggested in the war summary 2 days ago, that the British submarine experts who did so much last year to clear the Baltic of German shipping may this season continue their operations in new Russian submarines, which to the number of 15 should now be ready for the sea. The opening of Russian submarine operations so promptly after the Baltic bases became ice-free indicates that German battleships would take a big chance in the Gulf of Finland. The Austrians, after driving in the Italian advance guard in the mountain region east of the Adagi, are now face-to-face with the Italian main line of defense and are suffering very serious losses. In the Lagarina Valley, 5 violent attacks failed to shake the Italians, and the Austrians in each attack suffered sanguinary losses. Their attempt to drive the Italians from the Ledro Valley was equally fruitless. A dispatch to the London Daily Telegraph from Rome says the reason why the Austrians have not made more of their attack is that in the desolate mountain region in which it occurred, the deployment of large forces is impossible. The Italians are confident the rush has been stopped east of Trent and Rovereto. West of Trent, in the region of the Upper Sarka, the Italian Alpini are pushing ahead rapidly and have captured what Rome speaks of as rich booty in arms, ammunition, and material. There seems to be no occasion for anxiety regarding conditions in the Trentino. The Italians have officially admitted, though, the evacuation of a number of important positions in the Lagarina Valley, in the Monte Meggio zone, and elsewhere in the region east of Trent and Rovereto, following several days of violent artillery bombardments, they say. Apparently, the Austrians gathered enormous stores of high explosive projectiles, and by long periods of toil, piled up ample reserves for their guns high up on the mountainsides. The violent and sustained bombardment must have had very marked effect on the Italian positions. Some of these are built up of sandbags and others blasted out of the rock. The rock positions are especially dangerous because most high explosives exercise their greatest force against the point of contact, which offers greatest resistance. The tendency of a stick of dynamite is to dig down when exploded rather than to expend its energy in the air. The effect of high explosives on the Carso Plateau, along the Isonzo and the Alpine warfare, is to shatter the rocks on which the shells explode and send out showers of rock splinters, which may not only wound badly, but frequently blind the men within reach of the flying rock. It was estimated some time ago that 40,000 Austrians had been blinded on the Isonzo front since the war began, because the conflict had been waged in a rocky terrain. Now the Austrians have forced the Italians out of their positions on the frontier of the Trentino by the use of high explosives. The Italian evacuation of that part of the front, subjected to the violent artillery fire of the last few days, is good tactics, even if it is somewhat humiliating. The guns which have wrought havoc are big guns and cannot be speedily mounted in fresh positions. Weeks of effort will be needed to move them forward, and long before that can be done, the Italians will have made heavy territorial gains at other parts of the far-spreading battlefront. Immediately to the west of Hill 304, between it and Diabocor Wood, runs the road from Harcourt to Esnay. The southern end of the road is the principal line of communication between Verdun and the French forces holding the northwest corner of the Verdun battlefront. A Berlin report states that on the night of Thursday, French trenches on both sides of this road were captured and 129 prisoners taken. The French reports are not so definite, but admit that attacks of extreme violence participated in by large numbers of men belonging to 2 new German divisions enabled the enemy to occupy a small French trench work to the south of Hill 287. The struggle continued yesterday, taking the form of an artillery combat of great violence. Only tentative attacks were made in the vicinity of Dead Man's Hill and Hill 304. The new enemy divisions that have appeared at BERTHA are probably the last reserves of von Hindenburg, drawn from the Russian front. It has been estimated that about 400,000 men in all have been removed from that front since last September for use in the Balkans and in the Western operations. Colonel Repington, the military correspondent of the London Times, estimates that on the 450 miles of front from the Gulf of Riga to the Pripyat marshes held by the German troops there are now only 1.2 million men, of whom half are infantry, actually manning the trenches. This gives 1,300 men per mile over the line as a whole, an entirely insufficient number if the Russians seriously challenged them. Colonel Repington's comment on the position of the enemy all along the eastern front between Riga and the Pripyat is that all the German goods are in the shop window. If this statement correctly sums up the situation, the supply of cannon fodder from the German lines in Russia for the BERTHA campaign must be almost at an end. A Russian official report says that there have been only insignificant encounters along the Armenian front and some outpost affairs on the European front. The Turks assert that the Russians advancing towards Bayburt, midway between Erzingen and the Black Sea coast, have been checked and have suffered enormous losses. The report states that on both wings, near Bitlis and west of Trebizond, the Russians are entrenching and constructing fortifications. The Grand Duke Nicholas, now that he is face-to-face with a strongly reinforced Turkish army, may not have enough men to make a simultaneous advance along all parts of this front. The information sent out from Constantinople points to a period of inaction on both the Russian wings and suggests that a concentration is taking place in the center. The Russians, however, are masters of craft and quite capable of digging trenches and erecting earthworks for no other purpose than to deceive the Turks. When they strike again, it may be in a most unexpected quarter. It is reported from Copenhagen that a 4th German merchant ship, the Trav, was sunk on Thursday by a submarine of the Allies while en route from a German to a Norwegian port with a cargo of coal. Her crew was saved. Berlin is cheering up in face of this outbreak of submarine activity in the Baltic by remembering the losses inflicted on the Allies by German undersea boats. It is semi-officially reported that from the 1st of January 1916 to the 1st of May, German and Austrian submarines sank shipping of the Allies of 671,500 tons burden. These losses, if reliably stated, are very much greater than for any corresponding period since the war began. The statement that German warships sailed from Riga from Kiel early in this week to begin operations against that city may now be dismissed as a canard, and a very wild duck at that. Were a German battleship squadron steaming up the Baltic towards Riga, Russian and British submarines would not be neglecting their real opportunity by staying around the lower Baltic, torpedoing trading ships. The rumor was doubtless sent a wing to aid the war party in Sweden, which during the week has been doing its best to drag the country into conflict as the ally of Germany, seeking to conquer Finland, or at least give the Finns aid in obtaining independence. That attempt failed, and the German fleet is still in safe harbor. Despite the necessity for making good a heavy wastage in the Trentino, the Austrians, it is reported from Paris, are concentrating a large army and a great many vessels at Fiume, the Hungarian port in the Adriatic, for expeditionary purposes. The destination of the troops is believed to be the Albanian coasts, where an attack is to be made on Avlona, still held by the Italians. The only other possibility is a landing on the Italian coast, and this would seem to be beyond the bounds of safe strategy. I'm going to pause it. An astonishing change on the Tigris is reported by Sir Percy Lake, who announces that a force of Russian cavalry has joined General Gorringe, the British brigadier operating on the right bank of the Tigris, after a bold and venturous ride. The Turks on Friday vacated the Bethesda advanced positions on the right bank of the Tigris, and General Gorringe, following them up, attacked and captured a redoubt in the rear of that position. On the north side of the river, The enemy are still holding the well-fortified Samyat lines, failure to capture which, by the British relieving army, made necessary the surrender of Kut El Amara. Good Lord. There is much speculation as to where the Russian cavalry came from who have reinforced General Gorge's army. One supposition is that the detachment came from the Russian army, which is threatening Kanakan, a Persian border town almost due east of Baghdad. A much more likely route for the Russian force is that which extends down the valley of the Yessen River, an important stream to the northeast of Kut El Amara. From the town of Yessen to Kut El Amara, through the Great Suicha Swamp, extends a caravan and a telegraph route, probably impracticable at this season of the year for infantry, but which the hard-riding horsemen of the Caucasus would readily negotiate. Unable to approach the main position of Sir Percy Lake on the north bank of the Tigris because of the flooded condition of the country, they must have crossed the river at a point probably north of Kut El Amara and swinging around the Turkish lines reached General Gorge's forces operating in the higher land on the south side of the river. Their coming heralds the evacuation of the Tigris Valley by the Turkish army. It would be utterly impossible for the Turks to maintain their line of communication up the river with roving horsemen operating along its banks. Nothing has been said for several days regarding the movements of the Russian army approaching Baghdad and Mosul, except a few words stating that the Mosul advance continues. There seems to be a belief in certain quarters in London that already the Baghdad railway has been cut at Mosul, and that the Turkish forces south of that city are now in the air without lines of communication and under the necessity of retreating by way of the valley of the Euphrates instead of the valley of the Tigris. The period of high water on both rivers is almost at an end, and with the subsidence of the inundations, the operations of the British and Russian armies will become much less difficult. Conditions on the left bank of the Meuse on Saturday afternoon were critical for the French defense. Huge German assaulting columns had been thrown forward ruthlessly during the day upon the French positions on the northern, eastern, and western slopes of Dead Man's Hill, mowed down by what the French official report speaks of as murderous curtain of fire and by the rifles of the French infantry. The Germans, nevertheless, succeeded in the afternoon in occupying the advanced trenches of the French on the northern and western slopes of the hill. The Berlin official report, which speaks of the attack as having been made upon the west and south slopes, states that 31 French officers and 1,315 men, together with 16 machine guns and 8 cannon, were taken during this rush. In an endeavor to still further improve their successes, the Germans pressed forward toward the second line of trenches, but were taken under a fire of the French guns and retreated in disorder, leaving many dead men upon the ground. The struggle continued throughout the night. On the eastern slopes of the hill, the enemy were again repulsed by a shattering artillery fire. On the western slopes, they advanced and entered into some of the first-line trenches of the defense. During almost all of yesterday, the battle continued with unabated fury on the front extending from Avalcourt Wood to the Meuse. Not content with defending their positions, the French launched a number of counterattacks. On the Harcourt Road, 2 German trenches were taken, and on Hill 287, an outwork occupied by the enemy on May 18th was entirely shattered. To the east of Hill 304, a detachment of Germans, who had succeeded momentarily in penetrating the French first-line trenches, was completely driven back. Once more, the Germans endeavored by shock tactics to carry the slope west of Dead Man's Hill. An entire brigade was thrown against this portion of the line. The attack was stopped by French machine guns and counterattack. No further progress was made. The net result of the struggle, which continued from Friday night until yesterday afternoon, almost without cessation, and which must have cost thousands of lives, was the capture of a small part of the first-line trenches on the slopes leading up to Dead Man's Hill. While this struggle was proceeding on the west bank of the river, the French created a diversion on the east side by an attack upon the Haudromont Quarry, which had been strongly organized by the enemy. The quarry positions were captured, and with them 80 prisoners and 4 machine guns. In estimating the importance of the fighting on the west bank of the river, it must be remembered that Hill 304 and Dead Man's Hill are almost 8 miles from the city of Verdun, and that between them and the city are 2 important defensive positions. The capture of Hill 304 and of Dead Man's Hill would encourage the Germans to continue their attack, but would by no means involve the evacuation of Verdun without further desperate and prolonged fighting. Last night's official Vienna report states that the Austrians continue to advance, especially in the region immediately adjacent to the Terragnola Valley and the Upper Estaco. In the Sugana Valley, they have not pursued the initial successes obtained by them early last week. A curious sidelight upon the motives of the Austrian Higher Command in undertaking the drive southward into Italy is published by a Genoa paper, which reproduces a manifesto found on a number of Austrian prisoners. This document states that Austria is preparing a mighty offensive against the province of Venetia in order to separate it from Lombardy. When this objective is achieved, it is stated, we will return Venetia to Italy, provided she signs a peace treaty and induces her allies to sign. There is little prospect of such a result following an Austrian invasion of northern Italy. The Italians will prove as obdurate to pressure of that sort as have the people of Belgium and northern France. If Austria's armies descend to the Italian plain, they are unlikely ever to return to the fastnesses of the Tyrol. Boy, oh boy. As the second year of the war draws to an end, the Germanic armies are still forcing the fighting on the Belgian, French, and Italian fronts. The tremendous initial advantage of the Central Powers in the matter of heavy artillery has apparently not yet been overcome by the Allies. At Verdun, the French are still withstanding the vast concentration of heavy artillery brought about by the Crown Prince. In the Alps of the Trentino, the Austrians are using 12-inch howitzers and other large caliber guns, against which the smaller pieces of the Italians have proved useless. The Allies are straining every nerve to increase their output of heavy artillery, but it is not at all probable that they will be in a position to overwhelm the enemy's guns before the late fall or the spring of 1917. In the matter of men, they are undoubtedly superior to the Germanic powers already, and this superiority will rapidly increase. But the necessary superiority in guns and shells can be secured only by long continued labor in the factories and arsenals of Britain, France, Russia, Japan, the United States, and Canada. Just got to say this. This is the 5th time I've tried to do this bloody war summary, and I've read that thing. I'm like, oh my God, here we go with Britain, France, Russia, Japan, United States, and Canada again. Oh my God. I really need to learn how to get better at this. This is for sure. The operations in the Trentino begin to bear the appearance of a serious defeat for the Italians. An official statement from Vienna claims that the attack of the Austrians upon the plateau of the Laveron was a complete success and that the Italians were driven from their whole position. It is added that since the beginning of the operations, a little over a week ago, 23,883 Italians, of whom 482 are officers, have been taken prisoner, and that 172 cannon have been captured. The extraordinarily large spoil of the Austrians in cannon is quite understandable. Many of these guns were mounted on almost inaccessible alpine heights, to which they had been dragged with incredible labor. In the sudden rush of the Austrian offensive, there was no time to remove them, and although the breech blocks and other essential parts were removed so that the Austrians could not make use of them, the guns are lost to the Italians, and the replacement will be a matter of difficulty. Okay, I'm going to give myself a little in. The text is pretty brutal, but still, I got a lot. Imagine this. This is my 5th time. So you can imagine what the other 4 looked like, or sounded like. Good Lord. Okay. The Italian General Staff has issued an official statement as to the strength of the Austrian forces employed along the border between the Brenta and the Adige. It is believed that the present drive has been taken part in by 16 divisions, slightly over 300,000 men. The very best and oldest troops in the service of the Austro-Hungarian monarchy were assigned to the work, including all the regiments specially trained in mountain warfare. They came from the Galician, Serbian, and Montenegrin fronts. With them came all the available artillery which could be spared from the Russian border. Among the guns used are no less than 30 12-inch guns, which were placed on the Laveron-Folgaria plateau with an inexhaustible supply of ammunition. These great pieces can throw charges of high explosives large enough to blast huge craters in the living rock. The Italian staff concludes its review of the situation thus: it would appear that the Austrians are making against us a mighty effort, which we are facing with the greatest confidence. The direction of the Austrian drive fully bears out the comments of the correspondent of the London Daily Telegraph and other experienced journalists who declare that the Austrians are seeking not merely a local success in the Alpine region to the east and southeast of Trent, but are seriously attempting to obtain a lodgment on the Italian plain, and by the capture of Vicenza and perhaps Padua, to cut off Venetia from southern Italy and destroy the armies now battling with the Austrians on the Isonzo front and in the Carnic Alps. There are many important fortresses on the border standing in the way of the success of the enterprise, and it is believed that long before the Austrian advance reaches railhead at Arcirco, the Italians will have brought reinforcements up in such numbers that the movement will proceed no farther. Sir Percy Lake reports that with the lowering of the waters of the Tigris and the coming of intensely hot weather, the British army is making progress on the south side of the river. An official report issued last night says that the Turkish forces are withdrawing, and the right bank of the Tigris is clear of the enemy as far as Shat El Hai, except for small rear guards which are covering the bridge over the Hai 500 yards below its junction with the Tigris. The main body of the British troops on this bank of the Tigris has reached the southern prolongation of what was known as the Essen position and extends southerly from the bank of the river to Djila. This communication indicates a very great weakening of the Turkish position. The Shat El Hai is a watercourse believed at one time to have carried a large part of the waters of the Tigris southward across the desert to the Euphrates. Its junction with the Tigris is at a point immediately south of and opposite Kut al-Amara. The continued occupation of Kut by the Turkish army will be impossible if the British force obtains firm lodgment on the southern bank of the river. Were the Turks to remain in Kut, the forcing of the Saniat position on the northern bank of the river would enable Sir Percy Lake to besiege them with every chance of repeating the success that they achieved against General Townshend's forces. The general retirement of the Turkish army in Mesopotamia appears to be imminent. At Verdun, fierce fighting continues around Dead Man's Hill and Hill 304. The Germans have thrown about 60,000 fresh troops into this struggle and are making some progress on the slopes of both hills. Berlin reports that our troops stormed French positions on the eastern spurs of Hill 304 and maintained them against repeated attacks of the enemy. In addition to the great losses of the French in killed and wounded, we captured 9 officers, 518 men, and 5 machine guns. The French midnight official report refers briefly to the fighting, saying, on the left bank of the Meuse, we continued to make progress during the day south of Hill 287 and forced the enemy to evacuate a small work, which he had held since May 18th. In the region west of Dead Man's Hill, our counterattacks enabled us to drive the enemy from some new trench elements occupied by him. In order to relieve the German pressure on the left bank of the Meuse, the French yesterday launched an attack upon the German lines east and west of Fort Douaumont on the right bank. Along a front of over a mile, the German trenches were captured and Fort Douaumont was penetrated. The Germans hold the northern part of the fort still. The French, during their drive, took many prisoners. Southeast of Verdun, on the heights of the Meuse, the French, by a surprise attack, took 300 yards of German trenches. The day's operation seems to point to the weakening of the German lines around Douaumont in order to provide troops for the prolonged offensive across the river. German activity increases in Belgium and northern France. A Berlin official report states that east of Nieuwpoort, near the North Sea coast, a German naval infantry patrol entered French trenches, destroyed the defenses, and returned with 1 officer and 222 men as prisoners. This part of the front has long been held by the French Marines, a famous corps, who will assuredly not permit the German exploit to pass unchallenged. A more serious affair took place on Sunday night, southwest of Gand-Vichy, where Berlin says 1.25 miles of British trenches were captured and British counterattacks repulsed with heavy losses. Here, 8 officers and 220 men were captured, together with 4 machine guns and 3 mine throwers. The British admit the loss of 1,500 yards of trenches, varying in depth from 100 to 300 yards after an intense bombardment. And I'm going to pause again. The titanic struggle at Verdun proceeds with a ferocity scarcely equal during the first days of the campaign, away back in February. The present battle may be the foe's dying struggle, as neutral observers believe it to be, but if it is, the enemy dies hard. The midnight French official report tells how the Germans repeatedly hurled great masses of men into the assault on our positions to the east and west of Dead Man's Hill. In the first attack, they were mowed down by our artillery and machine gun fire, and were repulsed with very sanguinary losses without being able to reach our lines. The second attack, as violent as the first, was made around 7 o'clock in the evening and resulted in their gaining a footing in our trenches to the west of Dead Man. However, our counterattack, launched immediately, dislodged them completely. While this battle, in which not less than 60,000 Germans and perhaps 40,000 Frenchmen took part, was raging all day around the blood-soaked slopes of Dead Man's Hill, a Homeric conflict was in progress on the heights of Douaumont across the Meuse. Homeric, okay. There on Monday, the French had penetrated the dismantled stone and earthwork fortification carried by the Brandenburgers in the first rush upon Verdun 3 months ago. The German garrison, sorry, I got to grab my mouse here, was driven back foot by foot in hand-to-hand fighting, and at nightfall on Monday, held only a small portion of the northern part of the fort. The struggle continued throughout the night, and the enemy at dawn held only a small portion of the northeast angle of Fort Douaumont. In the hope of lessening the pressure on the overborne occupants of the position, the Germans on the narrow front between Haudremont and Douaumont waged an artillery all-day battle. The French midnight report says the Germans multiplied the number of their assaults, preceding each attack with very powerful artillery preparation. Despite all these efforts, the positions which we captured yesterday remained intact in our hands. This was especially true of Fort Douaumont. In this region, we captured more than 300 prisoners. The tricolor flies over Douaumont once more. That is France's answer to the German claim that the Crown Prince is making progress at Verdun. The city on the Meuse seems destined to be not only the scene of the greatest siege in recorded history, but of the suicide of the Hohenzollern dynasty. Got to learn how to say that as well. The Austrian invasion of Venetia has begun. It follows the line of the Sugana Valley. Hence issues the Brenta, a considerable stream that flows from its source in this alpine region across the province of Venetia and reaches the Adriatic at a point near the city of Venice. The distance from Mount Velna, the Italian fortified position on the upper Brenta, carried by the Austrians on Monday to the sea at Venice, is 55 miles, and there are excellent railway facilities along the river valley for the movement of troops. The Italian official report issued last night stated that in the Sugana Valley between the Estacco and the Brenta yesterday, our troops fell back gradually on their main lines after repulsing Austrian attacks throughout the day of May 22nd. The retreat was orderly and spontaneous. Earlier in the day, describing the same operations, the Austrian War Office reported, our troops advanced on both sides of the Sugana Valley. The enemy hastily fled from Borgo, which is about 5 miles north of the Italian frontier. Quantities of booties were captured by us. The Graz troops crossed the border and harried the defeated enemy. The Italian fortification of Monte Velna is already in our hands. While the main Austrian attack proceeds towards Vicenza and the sea, the enemy are preparing to prevent any dangerous counterattack up the valley of the Adagi. A report from Rome states that between Lake Garda and the Adagi, the Austrians are massing great forces in the Riva zone. This may be intended as a supplementary striking army to prevent the concentration of the Italians against that which is descending the Brenta, but it is more likely placed in the valley of the Adagi to keep the Italians from capturing Trent while the Austrians are taking Vicenza. It is not improbable that the Italians may fight delaying actions only on the foothills of the Alps and may mass their forces for a decisive trial of strength in the plains of Venetia. There, the Austrian great guns would not be so formidable as they have proved in the Alpine warfare of the past 10 days, even if they could be speedily moved from their positions on the Alpine plateau. The effect of the firing of 12 and 15-inch guns in the Alps has been terrific. The detonations alone seem to split the mountain peaks and bring down masses of rock in the form of avalanches. The Austrian victory in the Tyrolean Alps is a great triumph for the big gun, perhaps the greatest of the war. That the chief effort of the Germanic powers is to be made on the Italian front is proved by the fact that the Bulgarians have been taken as prisoners by the Italians on the Isonzo front. The presence of Bulgars there indicates that Austria is short of men and has strained every nerve to secure troops for the Trentino offensive. The time seems opportune for a Russian offensive in Galicia and the advance of the Franco-British army of Salonika into Macedonia. The jig is up on the Tigris. Turkey officially announces that her lines around Kut El Amara have been readjusted. The truth is that the Turkish army is retiring towards Baghdad with a vague hope that a stand may be made there against the Russian and British advance. A few more tons of flour would have saved Townsend. Yeah. The capture of the village of Cumier on the west bank of the Meuse, about 3/4 of a mile south of Goose Hill and 6 miles from Verdun, as the crow flies, is reported from Berlin. French official reports admit that the Germans obtained a lodgment in the French positions after a prolonged and sanguinary struggle. The possession of the high ground at Cumier is of importance to the Germans in that it gives gun positions from which to bombard more effectively the French lines to the west on Dead Man's Hill and the second line of defense farther to the southeast. It must be remembered that west of the river, the Germans are still hammering at Hill 304 and Dead Man's Hill, which correspond to Beaumont, Louvemont, and other advanced fortifications on the east side carried in the first rush of the campaign in February. The main line of defense on the west, which corresponds to Douaumont, Vaux, and Pepper Hill on the east, has not yet been approached by the enemy. It is known as the Bois Bourou position and consists of a group of field works of great strength connecting the forts de Bois Bourou, de Mar, and Charnay. Behind this line, there is a third of which the key position is Fort du Chaume, I guess, on the highest point west of the river in the vicinity of Verdun. If the Germans, following up their capture of the village of Cumier, can force the French to evacuate Dead Man's Hill to the west, they will then have to begin operations against the Bois Bourou group of forts. In attacking these positions, there's no possibility of taking shelter. The land falls away from the earthworks towards the northwest in a long, glisse-like slope up which the Germans must advance to attack in the face of the great concentration of French artillery known to have been made behind the line of the forts. Dead Man's Hill and Hill 304 have cost the Germans terrible losses, and the end is not yet. It is predicted by experts who have examined the Bois Bourou positions that they will prove far more deadly to the German infantry than the outer line of the defenses proved. While the fierce struggle for possession of Cumier was in progress during the night of Tuesday, the battle for Fort Douaumont continued on the east side of the river. the Germans launched a series of what the official report speaks of as ferocious assaults, without counting the cost in human lives. During the night and in the early morning, the French held their ground well, although to the east of the fort, the Germans began to make progress and captured some French trenches and 500 prisoners. The absolute disregard of the German leaders for the lives of their men told in the long run, and the French Midnight Report admits that the Germans have reoccupied the ruins of Fort Douaumont. Yesterday afternoon, the report states, the Germans threw against the Douaumont positions 2 fresh Bavarian divisions which had just arrived at the front. After various unsuccessful attempts in which the enemy suffered huge losses, the Bavarians occupied the ruins of the fort. Our forces, Paris adds, now hold the immediate outer ground. During the day, the Germans who tried to debouch from the captured positions in Cumier were repeatedly stopped, and in the afternoon, the French retook some trenches on the southern edge of the village. The cost to both armies of the struggle on the banks of the Meuse must be stupendous. It would be not surprising to learn that the killed and wounded average at the present time 10,000 daily on each side. Good God. The counterattacks of the French now are almost as frequent as the German attacks. That means a greater equality of loss than the early stages of the campaign, when the French seldom counterattack. I just do not understand these numbers, man. Rome makes a fairly shrewd guess at the reason for the Austrian advance in the Trentino and the resumption of the Verdun offensive by the Germans. The Germanic powers are trying to wear out France and Italy before Russia and Great Britain are ready to exert their full strength. The Italians believe this plan will fail because all the allies will be able to soon will be able soon to pass from the present defensive state to defensive simultaneous action. The news from the Trentino proves that the Austrian rush has slackened. Italian shell fire has blown up the largest munition depot in Rovereto and set the town afire. West of the Adagi, the Italians are pushing the offensive. The main Austrian line of attack is now in the Sugana Valley and on the heights north and south of it. The Italian retirement is very slow. The Austrians claim 24,400 Italian prisoners, of whom 524 are officers. Sir Douglas Haig reports that the position of affairs on the Vimy Ridge is unchanged. Small parties of British troops have pushed their way to the German trenches and engaged in hand-to-hand fighting. This report is evidently intended as an answer to a Berlin official statement which speaks of British attacks on the Vimy sector and the extermination of British troops that reached the trenches. The wording of this report conveyed the impression that an important attack by strong British forces had been made for the recovery of the Vimy positions and had failed. The real attack is probably yet to come. There's heavy artillery fire along the Souchez-Vimy front. And that is it. Good Lord, I hope that was somewhat digestible, I guess. All right, see ya.